Greetings, guys. Welcome to another episode of Evolve. I am so happy that you're back with me this week. We have so much to talk about today. Today is a jam-packed show, and it's jam-packed because things going on in our universe are jam-packed, and more specifically, things going on with the astronomy and astrology of our universe are jam-packed. This month is going to be busy. And it's going to be busy because we are coming upon, on the 21st of August, the Great American Eclipse. I know that sounds kind of like it should be like dun, dun, dun. And actually, that's the feeling that a lot of us will have as we're going through this eclipse. A lot of changes for everybody. So, today's show is going to be two parts. We're going to break it down first into exploring the eclipse, what that means for us, what it means for us as a country. That's really important to understand. This portends greatly and will impact the country incredibly because it is actually an eclipse that is going over a great swath of our country. Eclipses affect places that you can actually see the eclipse from. And they're happening all the time. And they can be seen from all over the world at various points, but not everyone usually sees the eclipse. We see it this time. We see it here through our great states, through the Midwest, coming in from the West, crossing over into the East. You'll be seen in Tennessee and the Carolinas, and people are going in droves to take part of this. Astronomers and lay person alike are all interested in what's happening because eclipses have fascinated us forever. Today we're going to talk about the history of that, the fascination, how people utilized the energy of the eclipse, what happened after certain eclipses, the difference between lunar and solar eclipses, their import, their strength, how they affect you. And then as we break down into the second part of the show, we're going to talk about the energy that we each need to be holding for ourselves in this month of change, specifically for each sign. I don't normally do a full astrology show because it can get a little bit heavy and weighty, but I think that it's really important as we're entering so many different things happening here that we each have a mantra to hold. So today, the astrology kind of horoscope situation is going to be parsed out to you in the form of mantra, things to hold in your energy field as you go through this great time of tumult and change. Not all of it's bad, not all of it's good. All of it's going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to be honest with you. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it's fantastic because what it does is it gets you into the place you need to be. A great philosopher, poet, artist, musician once said this. It's a quote from his song. "We got to make a change. It's time for us as a people to start making some changes. Let's change the way we eat. Let's change the way we live. And let's change the way we treat each other." You see, the old way wasn't working, so it is on us to do what we have to do to survive. It's time to make some changes. And that is from Tupac Shakur, from his song Changes. And I thought it was a perfect segue into what happens, because when you're dealing with eclipses, you're dealing with changes. Now, another thing to understand too, remember I said there's a lot going on astrologically and in the world of astronomy. There's a new moon that's occurring in Leo on July 23rd. And it is dynamic, and it is dramatic, and it is a really provocative, provocative event. Now, that just happened a few days ago. By the time that you're hearing this show, we've recorded a week ahead. So you're going to understand the energy of that, and you're already in the energy and flow of that new moon that happened. So it's one of two new moons in a row in Leo. This new moon is also the beginning of eclipse season, and on August 7th, 2 weeks after the new moon in Leo, there'll be a full moon and a lunar eclipse in Aquarius. Now, eclipse season is a time when we're presented with growth opportunities at a rapid rate. Each eclipse has its own qualities and lessons and opportunities that we're going to investigate through the course of this show. And so I want you to understand the solar eclipse first. It happens when the moon and the sun are in the same spot in the sky, and the disk of the moon covers the sun. So eclipses are special events, as we kind of understand now, and they attract the interest of all these astronomers and ordinary folks. But astrologers are one group that pays special attention to the eclipses. Now, I'm not an astrologer. I happen to have some great friends that are astrologers, and I seek out an astrologer yearly, especially around my birthday. And for me, that's coming up now. I am a Leo, so this new moon, this eclipse, all of this affects me very, very greatly. And I already start to feel the energy ramping up, meaning that I'm shifting into gears for new projects and things feel fresh again and I have some momentum, but I also know that things are going to be really different and that's scary. So I thought if I'm feeling this, I want to make sure that my listeners or anybody that listens is prepared and understands how this is going to affect you. So when we're dealing with this August 21st eclipse this summer, that's the solar eclipse that I was talking about. That's going to be visible through a large portion on the continental United States, Mexico, and Canada. So by some, and this is why it got dubbed the Great American Eclipse, because this is the American hemisphere and North American hemisphere that it's going to be affecting. And the eclipse is really special because it's a total eclipse of the sun. And the sun will be completely covered. The stars will be visible in the daytime sky, and the streetlights will go on, although the path of the eclipse is a relatively thin band that runs diagonally from Pacific Northwest to the southeastern United States. Anyone is going to want to pay attention to this interesting and I think very spectacular celestial occurrence. Astrological tradition kind of holds that eclipses are the most powerful in places where they're visible, which is what I said at the top of the show. Adding to the excitement, though, of this eclipse is that when it occurs, it will be at 28 degrees of the sign of Leo, very close to the degree that was rising, the ascendant. Now, let me stop there. In our charts, we have many signs going on. We all know our sun sign, so everybody will, with boldness, say, I'm a Taurus, I'm a Leo, I'm a Gemini, I'm a Sagittarius. We all know that. Well, there's a sign that's rising as you're born, and that second sign is the face you present after you go through your first Saturn return or after you're 30. You start to really settle into the second part of your personality. So it'd be really important to know your ascendant sign, and maybe we can do a show on that as well, just ascendant, so that you understand what that means. But this is being affected by that ascendant, okay? So for me, I'm a Leo with a Gemini rising. I think that's interesting because this eclipse affects our country, our nation, and its rulers. We have a president that is a Gemini with a Leo rising. It is within 1 degree of his chart. That absolutely means it's going to affect him. It's going to affect our country and anything that comes underneath him. And that's what I wanted to get you guys prepared for, all these changes that are coming. All year, I've had my intuitions, my suspicions, my thoughts, my feelings, my disappointments, my excitements about what I've seen going on. Now I have kind of a energy and a feeling that you can't really debate. When you're dealing with this kind of aspect, it's so incredibly powerful. This eclipse that happens on August 21st hasn't happened in 100 years. And we'll talk about some of the things that have happened over eclipses, but I want to tie together what this means for us politically. I refrain and censor myself often from going too deep into politics, my own or the world. I try to put a spiritual spin on it and look at it. But now the two things have converged in a way that is undeniable. I cannot deny that we are going through an eclipse called the Great American Eclipse by astronomers and astrologers worldwide that happens to be in 1 degree of the president that's the ruler of our country. And that's how astrologers and astronomers look at any prime minister or president. They are considered the king. When you have Leo in your chart, you usually are meant to rule or lead in some kind of way if you're dealing with the positive aspects. Our last president, Barack Obama, who actually shares my birthday of August 4th, maybe he had 5 Leos in his chart. He was meant to be a king. And I thought it was funny when I used to watch like pundits on Fox or CNN or anything say King Obama when he would use executive order. And from an astrological standpoint, I understood King Obama because he has 5 Leos in his chart. There was nothing else that he could be. It wasn't appropriate. I didn't like everything, but what I did understand was that was his energy. He was supposed to be in that place. The same is true of Donald Trump. as much as people want to debate it and dispute it and say you're insane, and my friends that are liberal that are listening maybe like, has Monette officially lost her mind? Monette's been seeking spiritually about this, but now with this evidence in front of me, I'm so excited because it makes so much sense. He was meant to be a king in his own way, and he has been a king all of his life in various endeavors and ventures that had nothing to do with presidency. But this final destination, the place that he's at now in his life, is exactly where he's supposed to be. It's literally lining up in the universe in a way that I think might surprise you. So let's get back into that. I wanted to just touch on that so you understand this isn't something we're going to just watch and be like, oh, that's nice, a cool eclipse happened. And we look through the little, remember when you were a kid, you made the little eclipse lookers through the paper towel rolls? This isn't about experiencing scientific phenomenon or astronomical phenomenon. What it's about is understanding that we are on the precipice of change. Whether we want it or not, whether we like it or not, we will be evolving, even if it doesn't feel good. There is no choice. The person that is our ruler is in 1 degree of this incredible experience. Our country is affected by it and hasn't been for 100 years, and that means something. So as you're watching this and you want to pay attention, and I remember I said that it occurs at 28 degrees of the sign of Leo, very close to the degree that was rising, which is the ascendant, when U.S. President Donald Trump was born. An astrological tradition holds that the chart for a country is the chart of its ruler. The anticipation of the eclipse is amplified as President Trump is technically our ruler and even symbolically considered so. So hear that. Even if Donald Trump didn't have this 1 degree rising that's so close to this eclipse, it would still affect us because the chart for the country affects the chart of the ruler too. Meaning if you are the person in charge, these things will kind of be filtered through you. Because it lines up so closely, pay attention, guys. Things are going to be what things have been. I think maybe we've had a chance to kind of warm up here to what kind of situations we may be dealing with. But it's coming fast and woolly now. It's going to get really interesting here in the next month and then the 3 months afterwards. Incredible stuff happening. So let's talk about the symbolic potential in the past that happened with eclipse. When you're exploring them, it's really important to understand that this change in U.S. politics is really heralded because of it. One of the things that came up here in a daily news story that I was reading is that Russian oligarch parked his plane next to Donald Trump during the election. This is something that came up and people were like, how does this portend? Well, it's interesting. I was looking back and I thought, what's the connection here? And I've been studying these astrologers and I really wish I know Donald Trump's not listening. He needs an astrologer. I think it would help him so much ease the transition in this presidency and ease some of the decisions and things that he makes. I know he's not one to listen. I know he's a Gemini. That means he's duplicitous by nature. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Literally, the Gemini is a sign of the twins. So that I'm removing all emotion from this and just looking at him like I would a client. He is double-minded, and he does, and that is evidenced by his tweets from day to day. That's Gemini energy all day. While he may have some healthy intentions, there is this thing in him that it's been said by even his close friends and advisors, whoever the last person is in the room with him is a person that affects the way that he feels about what's going to happen next. So that's something to know. But still, he's king. That Leo rising means he's going to make the ultimate decision. Though he can be influenced, he will make the ultimate decision, and he'll throw anybody under the bus or pull them on the bus to ride right next to him. It just depends on how he feels. That's the Gemini at work. So that's one of the things to understand too. So a lot of astrologers right now are of the general consensus that this eclipse will have a significant ramification and effect for the U.S. because solar eclipses and new moons are seen in times when we are seeding future changes into the world. Manifestations of the eclipse are typically not immediate.